I'm Teisha Bader with Shalom TV's News Update. The Jerusalem Post reports that the International Olympics Committee held a surprise tribute for the Munich 11 Monday, but it was a far cry from the memorial that families of the slain athletes, as well as world leaders, have been asking for. IOC President Jacques Rogge on Monday spoke at the Olympic Village at a ceremony promoting the Olympic truce and paid tribute to the 11 Israeli athletes murdered at the 1972 Munich Games, telling reporters afterwards that it was a, quote, spontaneous suggestion. Rogge said at the ceremony, quote, "I would like to start today's ceremony by honoring the memory of 11 Israeli Olympians who shared the ideals and have brought us together in this beautiful Olympic village." Further saying the 11 victims of the Munich tragedy believed in that vision. We owe it to them to keep that spirit alive and to remember them. The ceremony was attended by several IOC and government officials. After Rogge's comments, a moment of silence was observed. This follows Rogge saying over the weekend that an official ceremony for the Munich 11 at the opening games in London would not be held. Anki Spitzer and Ilana Romano, two Munich 11 widows, told the Jerusalem Post they were outraged by the, quote, spontaneous ceremony, calling it a PR stunt intended to deflect criticism. Spitzer said this is not the right solution to hold some ceremony in front of 30 or 40 people. We asked for a moment of silence at the opening ceremony, not for someone to mumble something in front of a few dozen people. Spitzer and Romano fly to London on Tuesday and will hold a press conference on Wednesday where they will ask the IOC to officially honor the victims of the Munich massacre at the opening ceremony this Friday. While Spitzer and Romano were not alone in their criticism, Israeli officials were unimpressed as well. One diplomatic official said that a ceremony that nobody knew about or paid attention to is not what Jerusalem was looking for. The Anti-Defamation League also criticized Rogge's impromptu memorial, releasing a statement today saying Olympic officials irrationally and stubbornly refused to remember the 11 Israeli athletes at an official Olympic ceremony, claiming it would not be appropriate. This 4-decade refusal to mark one of the most infamous terrorist attacks in history and an attack on the Olympic Games themselves represents a continuing stubborn insensitivity and callousness to the memory of the murdered Israeli athletes. And staying with the Munich 11, the Times of Israel reports that the German news magazine Der Spiegel has charged that Germany had a tip-off from a Palestinian informant in Beirut 3 weeks before the 1972 Munich Olympic massacre, that Palestinians were planning a, quote, incident at the Games. The Foreign Ministry in Bonn reportedly passed the tip along to the Secret Service in Munich, but authorities there failed to act and have reportedly been covering up that fact for 40 years. The magazine reported several ways in which the attack was mishandled, stating the federal government and the local government of the state of Bavaria committed grave errors in their handling of the attack on Israeli athletes during the Olympic Games in Munich and have kept the true extent of the failure under wraps until today. The JTA reports that France's new president has stated that the roundup of thousands of Jews in Paris during World War II was a crime, quote, committed in France by France. French President François Hollande was speaking Sunday at a ceremony to mark the 70th anniversary of the largest French roundup of Jews that occurred in July of 1942, when some 13,000 French Jews were deported from the Winter Velodrome Stadium to Auschwitz, where nearly all of them were killed. Not one German soldier, not one was mobilized during this entire operation, Hollande said. Hollande also took the opportunity to remember the murder in March of 3 Jewish students and a rabbi at a Jewish school in Toulouse. And finally, Ynet reports that while the debate continues in the Israeli Knesset on the issue of a universal draft, a large number of young American men and women have already heeded the call to serve. Yediot Aharonot reported that this summer a record-breaking 350 young Jews from North America are immigrating to Israel to join the Israeli army. The first plane load of new recruits has already been nicknamed the Bakum Flight of Nefesh B'Nefesh. The Bakum is the name of the IDF induction center, and the flight should arrive in Israel in about 3 weeks. The arrival has been coordinated by Nefesh B'Nefesh and the Friends of the Israel Defense Forces, working with the Tzabar unit of the Israeli Scouts, the Ministry of Immigrant Absorption, and the Jewish Agency. Erez Khalfon, deputy chairman of Nefesh B'Nefesh, said, quote, "This is the best reply to Iranian and Hezbollah-motivated terrorism. Young people from North America leaving behind the good life for the Zionist idea." And that's Shalom TV's News Update. I'm Teisha Bader.